I'm Katherine G. McRae, and this is Perspective. My guests today are Syra Anjum and Jane O'Mello, both from the Soo Community Career Centre. We're discussing immigration and the newcomer settlement program today. Syra, would you tell us what your title is, please, at Soo Community Career Centre?
I'm working as a newcomer program lead at Soo Community Career Centre. It's been around 5 years. I'm working at Soo Community Career Centre.
Okay, thank you. And Jane?
I'm the manager of programs, so I manage both the settlement programs, and we have about 4 of them, as well as our new language program, which is called LINK. LINK is a short form for language instruction for newcomers to Canada.
Okay, thank you. So I understand that both of you work in the newcomer programs and deal directly with newcomers to Canada and to Sault Ste. Marie. And both of you are relatively newcomers yourself, is that correct?
Yeah, we can say so.
Okay. And you immigrated from?
I moved from Kenya in 2003 with my husband and our 2 kids, and we came to Canada.
And did you come directly to Sault Ste. Marie?
No, our first landing was in Toronto, so we did stay in Toronto for about 1.5 years, and then from Toronto I moved to go back to school. I went to Brock University and we stayed there for a wee bit, and we moved here in 2006 because my husband got a job at the steel plant.
Okay, thank you. And Syra?
I came here in Canada in 2005 with my husband on a spousal visa. He got a scholarship to come and study at McGill University, so that's why we stayed in Montreal for 2.5 years. And once he graduated, and he got an employment opportunity in Sault Ste. Marie, and so we moved here.
Great. And how are you liking Sault Ste. Marie living here?
Well, the beginning was tough, challenging, because it's not new to move and go to a new place where you don't know anybody and extremely cold like Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
But you know what? With time, I've adjusted and I like it here.
Excellent. And how about you, Syra?
Yeah, it was a big adjustment in the beginning here because living in Montreal, and before that, yeah, we also stay for a short time in Toronto. I always lived in big communities, big cities, yeah. So it was a little bit adjustment quite in the beginning, but once I start working at Career Centre, I got myself busy and it seems quite easy for me. Yeah.
So why did you leave Pakistan, is where you're from?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you leave there and decide to come to Canada?
Well, if I think back, I think my story of immigration is pretty much similar to all those newcomers who come and choose to live here in Canada every year and go through the same path. Yeah, why I choose to live here in Canada, it's because of the better opportunities of life, more opportunities for growth for ourselves, for our children, for our families back home.
Nice. And Jane?
It was an adventure. My husband had just finished his PhD in Germany, and he wanted an opportunity to go and be able to do some hands-on work in a manufacturing company. And because his specialization was in steel making, and we don't have a steel making company in Kenya, we thought, let's get some adventure going, look around and see where he could go and practice. And Canada was one of the countries top on our list. And at that point, you could apply through the economic class, and we did apply through the economic class with him being the principal applicant. And we were happy and glad that we were successful, and that's how we came here.
Well, I'm glad you're both here too. Welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome to this show.
Thank you.
It takes a lot of bravery, I think. In my opinion, I think it would take a lot of bravery to pack up and go to a totally different country.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, for me, Canada was not that first country. It was my second, because we did live in Germany for 5 years before we moved here. And for both places, it's always courage. You have to reach a point where you're willing to take a risk, and I'm kind of a risk taker, so we did take that risk, yes.
Wow,
yeah.
Absolutely. We need to go to break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McRae, and you're watching Perspective. Before the break, we were talking about the courage it would take to leave your everything you know in your country and your friends and family, relatives behind and decide to go live in a totally foreign country. Can you explain to me the process? I know you both work with newcomers and how you help the newcomers from your own personal experience integrate into the community here in Sault Ste. Marie, which is very, very different from both of your countries. Syra, we'll start with you.
At Soo Community Career Centre, we have a program which is called New to the Soo, and we provide settlement services to all newcomers in community. So when we meet initially with our newcomers who are moving here because of their jobs, or sometimes we also receive international students who are going to pursue education in Sault College or Algoma University, as well as some professionals. Initially, we set up a meeting with our newcomers, and during our meeting, we assess their settlement needs. Yeah. So if they are looking for housing, we help them to find suitable apartments and houses for them. We also help them to go and apply for all important documents which all Canadians need to settle here in Canada, like social insurance number, health card. We also help them to get their driver's license. We also provide interpretation and translation services. So if they have their documents in some other languages, we provide services at Soo Community Career Centre.
Okay. And Jane, do you help people actually through your own experience too with getting settled?
Yes, I do. I did a lot of frontline work. Now I've stepped back and I do more of management work. However, another unique program that we've been funded for now, close to 3 years, that we do is the Resettlement Assistance Program. And it mainly focuses on refugees who are sponsored by the government to come and settle in Canada. In Sault Ste. Marie here, what we do with them is we help them with temporary accommodation when they come. And once they have come, we help them also complete a contract with the federal government, and after that walk with them step by step through their settlement and integration process. So that involves a lot, because when you come here as a refugee, it's very different and unique experience from newcomers who come here as on an economic immigration category, because many of the refugees, when they come here, they come from a war-torn country. They've been living in a refugee camp for many of them years, like over 10 years. So they have a lot of challenges that we help them navigate. It could be mental issues. It could be getting back to go to school for their kids who have never been in school for a very long period of time, or it could just be trying to adjust and settle down in a new country.
I think it's probably very difficult for a born and raised Canadian to even really fathom the hardships that some people have gone through and what it's taken to get to this country. And I think what I'd like to do with this program is to maybe share why it's so important for born and raised Canadians to maybe understand some of those challenges and be more accepting. And it's not that we're in Sault Ste. Marie. I know Sault Ste. Marie welcomes newcomers, but not everywhere is as welcoming, I don't think. And even in Sault Ste. Marie, I'm sure you've both faced different challenges along the way since you've been here. What is it that people need to really grasp and understand when they're meeting a newcomer or a person from a different country that maybe doesn't have perfect English language skills, and not understanding the life that they've left behind and those challenges that they've left behind to try to better themselves and their families?
I'm very sure that there are many Sooites who may have been born and raised here, but maybe their parents came from another country and may have gone through a similar journey, just like other newcomers who come here. The challenges may be similar, they may be different depending on where somebody's coming from. What makes a huge difference is an inviting and welcoming community. If you have an inviting and welcoming community for anybody who is new, whether it's a newcomer or whether it's a Canadian coming from another province or from another city to come to Sault Ste. Marie, that makes a huge difference, because then you can walk out there and you can be able to connect, make new social circles, because when you go to a new place, for some, for example, language may be an issue. Not every newcomer who comes to Canada has both the official language or one of the official languages. For those who come and language is an issue, it means they have to walk the path of learning a new language afresh and being able to successfully live, get a job, work, and speak that language. And when you have a time crunch where you need to learn the language and go out and look for a job and work, it becomes very stressful for many newcomers, especially for refugees who have been coming to Sault Ste. Marie for the past 3 years. That is one of the greatest challenges that we have seen. But through the language programs that we have helped them quite a bit.
Excellent. Okay, we need to go to break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. You're watching Perspective. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McRae, and this is Perspective. Syra, what was your experience immigrating to Sault Ste. Marie?
It has been a great experience. Like if I look back in the beginning, I must say that Sault Ste. Marie was not as diverse as we see it right now. And the big credit goes to Soo Community Career Centre Newcomer Services, because throughout the year we run lots of community connections and cultural events at our centers, and we are creating an awareness about different cultures all throughout the year.
Did you find Sault Ste. Marie welcoming for your own personal experience?
So far as if I have a look on my own experience, yes, in the beginning there were some challenges. Yeah, when I moved here and I was looking for a job as a newcomer, yeah, it took me a little bit time to find my way. And the fortunate experience is one of my neighbors, she guided me through that there is a Soo Community Career Centre and they just started newcomer program, and I met with program coordinator and Jane, she was my counselor at that time. And then I began volunteering at Soo Community Career Centre, which leads me towards securing a part-time employment and leading towards a full-time job in next 3 months.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that worked out very well with the timing.
Yeah.
And Jane, what about you? Were you welcomed into the community when you first arrived into Sault Ste. Marie, or were there difficulties?
My experience moving to Sault Ste. Marie was a mixture of both, a mixture of people who would smile and welcome you, and a group of good friends around, and also just the challenges of being able to settle in a new space. I came here with my kids, and the beginnings were very rusty, I would say, because it wasn't really what I was expecting, and I had to learn to step out there more, to connect more, and to really look at how can I make Sault Ste. Marie home.
Excellent. So with the newcomer program, you're providing services to documented immigrants, as well as refugee humanitarian program as well. Can we talk a little bit about that? How does that differ from the other documented immigrants that are, as you mentioned, invited by the government to come, and with the humanitarian aspect of that are leaving war-torn, disastrous situations behind, and basically running for their lives? How do those two programs differ, if they do?
So a newcomer program is funded by both levels of government. We are funded by both the federal government as well as the provincial government. And we have an open door policy, so we provide services to all newcomers, irrespective of what their background or documentation is. And for the programs that are funded, they are able to get a whole suite of the support programs that we do provide. The new program about the refugees is called the RAP, so the Resettlement Assistance Program, and it's unique from the other programs because they get a whole lot more support than newcomers who come here on Family Reunification Program or under the economic program. So for the refugee program, it's a unique program, and we have also developed unique support systems for them. What we do, because we realized that it was a more hands-on program, more intensive, that needed a lot more work from the team, what we did is we reached out to the community. We reached out to the community with a call for volunteers because we discovered that we needed volunteers to help the newcomers who came here as refugees settle because of the amount of work that was involved in it.
Okay, we need to go to break, and we come back, we'll touch on that program about what the community volunteers do and what's needed from them. We'll be right back. You're watching Perspective. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Perspective. I'm Katherine G. McRae, and we're talking about the Newcomer Settlement Program and what volunteers can do and do in the community of Sault Ste. Marie. Syra, what is your experience with, you put the call out, my understanding is the Soo Community Career Centre put the call out to the community to step up and help with the newcomers in a volunteer program. Can you speak to that a little bit and explain what that's about?
In 2016, when we start receiving our refugee families, we started receiving the first influx of refugee families. We created an initiative at Soo Community Career Centre, which is Adopt a Refugee Family Initiative. And as a result of that, we created our partnerships with different government agencies and different organizations, including the school board, the hospital, the group health centers. And we also created our partnerships with different group of volunteers. And because this group of newcomers who are arriving here as refugees, they are coming from a very different backgrounds as compared to our professionals who are moving here because of their jobs. So their needs are entirely different. So volunteers can help them in many different ways. Whenever we receive a newcomer family, we generally extend our call in our community and invite some volunteers and connect them with refugee families. And they can help them, especially in terms of orientation to shopping here in Canada, how to spend their lives, and especially in the beginning, like when they arrive in the first few days, these families needs more and more help. And
are they living with host families in Sault Ste. Marie?
It's the career center. We arrange the temporary accommodation in one of the hotels here, and then volunteers come on board with us. They work closely with Soo Community Career Center staff.
Okay.
And they help them there whenever we need. We also provide them training. The different ways how they can help them.
Okay, so Jean, I imagine that. As you had mentioned, there's a lot more needed when it's a refugee coming to Sault Ste. Marie. I imagine there's probably post-traumatic stress and who knows what all else goes along with that. How does the program address those needs?
Through the partnerships that we have formed, because the Soo Community Career Centre, as much as we are a one-stop hub, we cannot take care of all the needs of newcomers. So we are a referral agency, and so what we do is we provide referral services depending on the needs of the newcomers. Every one newcomer is a unique individual, so we sit down with each one of them and we have an action plan. And depending on the action plan that we come up with the input of the newcomer, then we are able to provide that referral. For instance, if a family comes and they volunteer to us that they've gone through a lot of trauma in their life, then we get them connected. And what we have been blessed is to be able to connect our families with family physicians if we can, or a nurse practitioner, or if we don't have any family physician to connect them with, then we refer them to Soo Area Hospital. So from there, the professionals are able to meet with them and address their needs.
Okay. We need to go to break again, and we'll be right back. You're watching Perspective on TV. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McRae, and this is Perspective. My guests are Sarah Anjum and Jane Omolo, both from Soo Community Career Centre. Just before we went to break, we were talking about the volunteer aspect. Sarah, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what's needed or required with volunteers and about the volunteer program, please.
If someone wants to volunteer at Soo Community Career Centre, the first thing they need to make a phone call in our office, and we have our volunteer coordinator, Brenda Cooper. She's working at Soo Community Career Centre. So we have a process in place. Yeah, first of all, they need to come in our office and complete a registration form. And then we will set up a meeting with Brenda Cooper. She's going to explain what it entitles to be volunteering with refugee families. And they have to go through a police check, which is our standard process. And then they are going to participate in a training session and get to know how they can start working with these families. Yeah.
Okay. And Jane, what is the benefit of being a volunteer with the refugee program?
I would like to start by saying that the refugee program would not have been as successful as it is today without volunteers.
Oh, that's great.
This community has thrown a lot of support behind our newcomers, and we are forever grateful for the work that the volunteers have done. And the benefits of being a volunteer, it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win situation for the volunteer. It's also beneficial to the newcomers, because then we have an opportunity to learn from one another. And we can ask as many questions as we can. And one thing that provides is it gives you that individualized opportunity to be able to know the family more, to know the culture more. So the stigma that may be around what newcomers are and some of these things that we hear and read about is really lessened by having volunteers come in and help us with the work that we do.
So they can integrate more quickly into the community as well with the help of the volunteers. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so how many volunteers are there with the refugee program specifically right now in Sault Ste. Marie?
Since the program began, we have had over 100 volunteers come through our program. Many of our volunteers are returnee volunteers, so they come, they help one family settle, then they come back to help another family. And so we really encourage those who have time to spare to come and help us, help the newcomers in their settlement and integration progress.
So they're obviously finding it rewarding because they're coming back.
It's a very rewarding endeavor, because at the end of it, initially it starts by, oh, I would like to help the newcomer learn this and learn that. Eventually it ends up being social, being a friendship, and that is something that you cannot trade with anything else.
That's irreplaceable.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So again, if you're interested in volunteering in the refugee or the settlement programs, please contact the Soo Community Career Centre in Sault Ste. Marie on Queen Street. I'd like to thank my guests today, Sarah Anjum and Jane Omolo.
My pleasure.
With the Soo Community Career Centre. Thank you both so much for joining us on Perspective today, and thank you for coming to Canada and choosing Sault Ste. Marie.
This was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to you for watching Perspective on TV. Till next time, what's your perspective?